Number 1. Mohammed Umar Khan. On the afternoon of Monday, February 3rd, 2025, students at All Saints Catholic High School in Sheffield gathered in the courtyard for their lunch break. Among them was 15-year-old Mohammed Umar Khan, a student who, by then, had already drawn the attention of teachers for his temper, disciplinary issues, and an unsettling fascination with weapons. Hidden in the pocket of his black jacket that day was a hunting knife with a 13-centimeter blade. Just a few minutes later, in front of dozens of other pupils, Khan walked up to his classmate, 15-year-old Harvey Wilgoose, punched him once in the chest, then drew the blade and stabbed him twice, one wound piercing Harvey's heart. In less than 10 seconds, a routine school lunch had turned into a murder scene. To understand what led to that violent moment, investigators had to look closely at the weeks before the attack. Khan was a relatively new student, having transferred to All Saints only about 3 months earlier after assaulting another pupil at his previous school. His home life, according to court testimony, was deeply unstable. He told investigators his mother suffered from mental health problems, that his family often lacked proper food, and that he had long-standing medical issues that made him feel humiliated among peers. Teachers described him as withdrawn, volatile, and prone to sudden anger. But beyond the instability, Khan had developed a disturbing interest in knives. The police later recovered dozens of photographs and videos from his phone, showing him posing with weapons, including hunting knives and an axe. He had searched online for terms like zombie killer knife and posted messages suggesting he was waiting for someone to provoke him so he could let out his anger. In the final days before the attack, tension had been rising inside the school. On January 29th, Khan claimed another pupil was carrying a knife, triggering a school lockdown. No weapon was found, but the event left many students anxious. Harvey, who wasn't even present that day, texted his father saying he didn't want to return to school while people have knives. Over that weekend, he and Khan exchanged heated comments on social media. What had once been a friendly relationship devolved into open hostility. On the morning of February 3rd, CCTV cameras recorded Khan confronting Harvey in a school corridor, making a gesture as though to show he had a weapon tucked in his jacket. Hours later, during the lunch break, he returned to the courtyard and acted on that threat. Witnesses said Khan punched Harvey, then plunged the knife into his chest and abdomen before stepping back as students screamed and fled. Harvey collapsed, bleeding heavily, as staff rushed to help. Assistant head teacher Morgan Davis disarmed Khan and detained him until police arrived. When officers questioned him, Khan reportedly said, "I'm not right in the head. My mom doesn't look after me right," he later told a teacher. "You know I can't control it." His remarks suggested awareness, but no remorse. The case went to trial at Sheffield Crown Court in August 2025. Khan admitted killing Harvey but denied murder, claiming manslaughter instead, arguing that he'd been bullied, threatened, and pushed past breaking point. His lawyers said he acted out of fear, not intent, but prosecutors presented evidence that the attack was planned. They showed jurors the CCTV footage, the photos of Khan posing with knives, and messages proving he had deliberately brought the weapon to school. The jury agreed with the prosecution. They found him guilty of murder. At sentencing in October 2025, Mrs. Justice Naomi Ellenbogen described the act as deliberate and brutal. She told Khan he had armed himself with a knife, gone to school intending to use it, and attacked a boy who posed no immediate threat. She imposed a life sentence with a minimum term of 16 years, the youth equivalent of life imprisonment. Because of the gravity of the crime, the judge also lifted the usual restrictions protecting the identities of juvenile offenders. For the first time, the country learned the name of the 15-year-old who had killed his classmate, Mohammed Umar Khan. The details of the case shocked the public. Teachers and classmates testified that Khan had been showing off the knife earlier that day, while others recalled warning signs in his behavior: social withdrawal, fixation on weapons, and violent outbursts. The prosecution argued that these were not the actions of a frightened boy, but of someone cultivating an image of toughness and power. The defense's portrait of a bullied, anxious teen could not outweigh the fact that Khan had carried a knife into school, hidden it for hours, and used it deliberately. In her remarks, the judge said Harvey's death was a senseless loss of a bright, kind boy, loved by everyone around him. Harvey's family described him as warm, funny, and protective of his friends. Someone who brought light into every room. They have since called for stronger safety protocols in schools, including knife arches and more robust monitoring of at-risk pupils. Number 2. Carmelo Anthony. It was Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. At David Kuykendall Stadium, dozens of high school athletes gathered for a district-wide track meet. Among them were two 17-year-old students, Austin Metcalf, a runner from Memorial High School, and Carmelo Sincere Anthony, a sprinter from Centennial High School, just a few miles away. Both young men were known among teammates, Austin for his easygoing personality and quiet determination, Carmelo for his intensity and short temper. The two didn't attend the same school, but they competed in the same district, often encountering each other at meets. Around 10 o'clock that morning, as athletes waited out the latest rain delay, a minor dispute began near the Memorial High School tent. Witnesses told police that Anthony had taken a seat under that tent, a space that was reserved for Memorial students. Austin and his twin brother asked him to move, and started as a simple request quickly escalated. A witness reported hearing Anthony respond with words to the effect of, "Touch me and see what happens." Moments later, as Austin tried to nudge him aside, Anthony reached into his backpack and pulled out a black folding knife. In front of teammates and coaches, he stabbed Austin once in the chest, a single, devastating blow that pierced his heart. Chaos erupted instantly. Austin stumbled backward and collapsed. Teammates screamed for help as coaches and athletic trainers rushed in to perform CPR. Witnesses described the scene as frantic. The call to Frisco police came in at approximately 10 a.m. Within minutes, officers arrived and secured the stadium. Meanwhile, Carmelo Anthony fled the immediate area, but did not get far. Police found him a short distance away, still carrying the knife. According to the arrest affidavit, he surrendered without resistance and immediately admitted to stabbing Austin, telling officers, "I did it. I was protecting myself. He put his hands on me." Officers took him into custody and transported him to the Frisco City Jail. Back at the stadium, first responders continued life-saving efforts on Austin Metcalf, but by the time he reached the hospital, it was too late. He was pronounced dead from a single stab wound to the chest. Word spread quickly across Frisco's tight-knit school community, where the shock was immediate. Parents gathered at the school district offices, classmates posted tributes online, and grief counselors were brought into both Memorial and Centennial high schools. Later that day, the Frisco Police Department held a press briefing confirming the details. 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony had been charged with murder, a first-degree felony under Texas law. Detectives collected the knife, witness statements, and video footage from the event. The initial arrest report noted that Anthony's actions appeared deliberate and not an accident. Within 2 weeks, prosecutors filed formal charges in Collin County, and Anthony's bond was initially set at $1 million. After a hearing on April 14th, a judge reduced that amount to $250,000, citing his age and lack of prior felony history. He was placed on house arrest with an ankle monitor and ordered to avoid social media and any contact with the victim's family. In June, a Collin County grand jury returned an indictment for first-degree murder. Under Texas law, anyone 17 or older is tried as an adult. If convicted, Anthony faces between 5 years and life in prison. Prosecutors have confirmed he is not eligible for the death penalty because of his age, nor for life without parole. His trial has been scheduled for June of 2026. The motive, as investigators outlined, appeared to stem from a mix of confrontation, pride, and poor impulse control. What began as a minor dispute over a chair or tent space escalated to lethal violence in seconds. Witnesses described Austin as unarmed and not acting aggressively. The prosecution maintains that Anthony initiated the confrontation and had the knife ready inside his backpack. The defense claims he acted in self-defense, arguing that Austin and his brother physically confronted him first. Reports differ slightly on the sequence of contact, whether Anthony was pushed before or after producing the knife, but all accounts agree that the attack happened almost instantly. As the case moved through the courts, the incident fueled national discussion about youth violence and school safety. Social media amplified rumors, forcing both police and school officials to issue statements warning against misinformation. Frisco police confirmed that fake documents and misleading posts were circulating online, some of them racially charged. Officials stressed that there was no evidence of racial motivation behind the killing, only a fatal argument between two teenagers at a public sporting event. In the months since, both families have been left devastated. Austin's family described him as a kind, respectful young man who loved running and had a bright future ahead of him. His twin brother, who witnessed the attack, has largely stayed out of public view. The Anthony family has expressed sorrow but maintains that Carmelo's actions were driven by fear and confusion, not intent to kill. Number 3. Bobby Jackson. Bobby Jackson was 16 years old when his choices turned a quiet Idaho afternoon into a homicide investigation that would shake the small city of Blackfoot. On October 23, 2025, police say Jackson approached 30-year-old Rebecca Rivera inside her trailer park home near South Broadway and asked for a ride. When she refused, he drew a handgun and shot her once in the head. The killing appeared unprovoked, but investigators would later find that it was part of a longer chain of reckless acts that began hours earlier and ended with Jackson's arrest in another city before dawn. That morning, Jackson had been working as a day laborer for a subcontractor at State Hospital South. Security footage later reviewed by detectives showed him entering a co-worker's truck and removing a semi-automatic pistol from the center console shortly after 12:30 p.m. The weapon was reported stolen within the hour. According to court filings, that same gun was used in Rivera's murder less than 4 hours later. By late afternoon, Rivera's relatives grew worried when she failed to pick up her young daughter from school. They drove to her trailer, knocked repeatedly, and received no answer. Inside, they found her unresponsive on the bed. Blackfoot police arrived at approximately 4 p.m. A single shell casing was on the mattress. The bullet wound was to the head. There was no sign of forced entry, struggle, or robbery, and the firearm was missing. Detectives canvassed the area, recovering surveillance video from nearby businesses showing Jackson walking away from the trailer park around the time of the shooting. Witnesses described him wearing dark clothing and carrying a small bag. The investigation quickly focused on him as the prime suspect. Police circulated his photo to regional agencies and warned the public that he was armed and dangerous. Just after 2:30 a.m. the next morning, October 24th, officers in Pocatello, about 40 miles southwest of Blackfoot, located Jackson at a residence and arrested him without resistance. He was transported back to Bingham County for questioning. According to the probable cause affidavit, Jackson admitted to shooting Rivera, stating that she refused him a ride and that he put a bullet in her brain. Investigators also documented a second statement in which he claimed he acted out of revenge for a friend's death. Prosecutors later said those admissions showed deliberate intent and premeditation. Jackson was initially charged with second-degree murder, but the Bingham County prosecutor amended the case to first degree after reviewing his statements and the theft of the gun earlier that day. Under Idaho law, juveniles aged 14 and older can be tried as adults for capital felonies, and the court approved adult prosecution. At his initial hearing, Jackson appeared via video, wearing detention clothing, and spoke softly when confirming his name. The judge set bond at $1 million and ordered that he remain in custody pending further proceedings. Police confirmed that Jackson and Rivera did not know each other. The motive appeared to revolve solely around the ride request and his earlier theft of the firearm. Reports differ on whether any verbal argument preceded the shooting, but all evidence indicates that the attack occurred suddenly, at close range, inside the victim's home. Forensic examination matched the spent casing at the scene to the handgun recovered from Jackson's possession upon arrest. Community reaction in Blackfoot was one of disbelief. Rivera was remembered by neighbors as a devoted mother and a familiar face around the trailer park. Vigils were held near her home, where candles lined the sidewalk for several nights. For many, the case represented the intersection of youth violence, firearm access, and system gaps that failed to prevent a known juvenile offender from obtaining another weapon. As of late 2025, Bobby Jackson awaits trial in Bingham County District Court. He faces a possible life sentence if convicted of first-degree murder. The prosecution describes the crime as a calculated act carried out without provocation. His defense has not issued a public statement beyond a standard plea of not guilty. This case underscores the fragile boundary between impulse and intent. A stolen gun, a single confrontation, and one irreversible decision ended a mother's life and destroyed a teenager's future in the span of an afternoon. Number 4. Ja'Cory Redding. Ja'Cory Redding was 15 years old, a student at Oak Ridge High School in Sky Lake, Florida. On the afternoon of Thursday, October 9th, 2025, classes had ended and students were moving between the campus and the nearby park. Redding left the school grounds carrying a small backpack. Investigators later said that earlier that day, inside one of the school's hallways, he and another student, 16-year-old Pinion Dalmasy, had brushed shoulders while walking in opposite directions. What began as a seemingly minor encounter between classmates would, by the end of the day, turn deadly. Witnesses told deputies that Dalmasy expected an apology. When none came, the two teenagers exchanged words and agreed to meet after school to fight. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, both boys arrived at Vote Maloon Park, located just behind the YMCA near the school. Several other students gathered to watch. According to the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the confrontation began with a fist fight. Witnesses said Dalmasy and Redding threw punches, and at one point, Dalmasy tackled Redding to the ground. Seconds later, Redding pulled a handgun and fired twice. The first shot struck Dalmasy as he fell backward. The second hit him while he was already on the ground. The crowd scattered as Dalmasy lay motionless. Deputies were called, and when paramedics arrived, they found him unresponsive. He was pronounced dead at the hospital a short time later. After firing the shots, Redding ran from the park and returned to the school campus. The sheriff confirmed that Oak Ridge High was immediately placed on lockdown as deputies searched for the suspect. They found Redding sitting inside the school cafeteria with the gun concealed in his backpack. He was taken into custody without resistance. Investigators reconstructed the timeline using witness statements, surveillance footage, and evidence collected at both the park and the school. They concluded that the shooting was the result of a spontaneous dispute, not a planned attack. However, prosecutors later filed documents suggesting otherwise. In a motion for pre-trial detention, the state claimed that Redding had carried the firearm during the entire school day and presented text messages sent months earlier in which he mentioned making someone believe a fight was coming before popping them. Prosecutors argued that this message showed awareness and preparation. Reports differ on whether he brought the weapon to school that morning or retrieved it afterward. The state charged Redding with manslaughter with a firearm and possession of a firearm on school property. Because of the seriousness of the case, the Office of the State Attorney announced that he would be prosecuted as an adult. Court records described a history of disciplinary issues, including 39 incidents across his time in the district, 17 involving fights or physical altercations. He also had a pending juvenile case for grand theft auto and resisting an officer without violence. During his first court appearance, Redding stood before a judge in handcuffs, wearing a standard jail-issued uniform. His family members were present but did not speak. The judge ordered him held in custody while awaiting a hearing scheduled for November 12th. 16-year-old Pinion Dalmasy was remembered by friends as polite, focused, and known for his love of basketball. He had attended Oak Ridge High since freshman year and was active in recreational sports programs near Sky Lake. After his death, classmates held a vigil at the basketball courts where the shooting took place. Teachers described him as a bright student with a calm temperament, and community leaders expressed frustration at how a hallway misunderstanding turned fatal within hours. Law enforcement officials used the case to emphasize how quickly teenage disputes can escalate when firearms are present. The sheriff called it a preventable tragedy born out of anger and access. As of November 2025, there has been no verdict or sentencing. Redding remains in custody, awaiting trial as an adult. From this case, several truths emerge. A simple act of pride between two teenagers, one brief collision in a crowded hallway, ended one life and altered another forever. It demonstrated how a weapon, in the hands of someone too young to understand its weight, can turn an argument into an irreversible loss. The lesson is clear. Conflicts can be diffused, apologies can be given, and tempers can cool. But once a trigger is pulled, there is no undoing what comes next. Number 5. Riaz, Maya, and Bennett Ndenke. On the evening of Wednesday, January 8, 2025, 17-year-old Riaz Maya walked through Bedford Town Center. It was just before 6 p.m., and the area around the bus station was crowded with commuters and students finishing their day. Maya was not there by chance. Hours earlier, a dispute that had been simmering between him and another teenager, 17-year-old Thomas Taylor, had reached a breaking point. Days before, Maya had been assaulted by someone linked to Thomas. According to evidence presented in court, the two teenagers agreed to meet near the bus station to settle it face-to-face. At around 5:50 p.m., Thomas Taylor was seen with friends along Greenhill Street, a short road running behind the station. Waiting nearby were Maya and 19-year-old Bennett Ndenke. Witnesses described a brief exchange of words before the confrontation turned physical. What began as a simple meeting escalated into a violent clash. In the middle of the struggle, Ndenke drew a knife. Within seconds, Thomas was stabbed. Bystanders called emergency services as he collapsed on the pavement. Paramedics arrived quickly, but he was pronounced dead at hospital a short time later. Both attackers fled the scene before officers arrived. Detectives from Bedfordshire Police launched a full-scale investigation. The bus station's extensive CCTV system provided clear footage of the moments before and after the attack. Using that footage, along with messages and call records retrieved from the teenagers' phones, investigators reconstructed the events leading up to the stabbing. The evidence showed that the meeting had not been random. It was part of an ongoing dispute that had begun days earlier. Officers arrested both Maya and Ndenke within hours of the killing. Forensic teams also recovered the knife used in the attack. The Crown Prosecution Service charged both young men with murder. The case proceeded to Luton Crown Court, where prosecutors presented a detailed timeline, supported by digital evidence and witness testimony. They argued that Ndenke was the one who inflicted the fatal wound, while Maya participated in the confrontation, knowing that violence was likely. The defense maintained that Maya never intended for anyone to be seriously harmed and did not know Ndenke was carrying a weapon. Over 7 weeks of proceedings, jurors heard evidence from pathologists, police investigators, and local residents who witnessed the fight unfold. On August 7, 2025, the jury returned its verdicts. Bennett Ndenke was found guilty of murder. Riaz Maya was cleared of murder but convicted of manslaughter. 2 months later, on October 10th, both men were sentenced. Ndenke received life imprisonment with a minimum term of 22 years before parole eligibility. Maya, who had turned 18 by the time of sentencing, received 8 years in custody. The judge told the court that the case represented yet another tragic example of youth violence fueled by retaliation and the decision to carry knives. Thomas Taylor was remembered as a promising and respectful student at Bedford Academy, active in local sports, and well-liked among classmates. His death shocked the community and prompted renewed appeals for stronger action on knife crime. Bedfordshire Police described the incident as a senseless loss caused by a series of choices that never needed to be made. The Crown Prosecution Service emphasized that even when a person does not deliver the fatal blow, participation in an armed confrontation carries severe legal consequences. From this case, the lessons are unambiguous. Old disputes and quick tempers, combined with the presence of a weapon, can destroy lives within seconds. Riaz Maya's decision to confront his rival placed him at the center of a crime that ended a young life and defined his own future in prison. Number 6. Demeter Fleurimond. On Sunday, August 17, 2025, 15-year-old Demeter Fleurimond was inside his family's home in Dania Beach, Florida. By the end of that night, his 23-year-old brother, Kevin Dominique, would be dead. What unfolded inside that house was violent and deliberate. According to investigators, Demeter waited until his brother was home, then opened fire, striking him multiple times. Detectives later documented approximately 15 rounds discharged from a rifle inside the residence. After the shooting, the teenager dragged Kevin's body through the house, loaded it into a vehicle, and drove a short distance before leaving it near a canal less than a mile away. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots that night and seeing a black Honda speeding from the area. When Kevin failed to show up for work the next morning, his disappearance was reported to authorities. For 2 days, family members searched for him. On August 19th, Broward County deputies responded to a call about a body found near a Dania beach canal. The victim was quickly identified as Kevin Dominique. He had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. Investigators traced the evidence back to the family home and began questioning relatives, including the 15-year-old. According to the arrest warrant later filed in court, detectives confronted Demeter with inconsistencies in his statements. Inside the house, they found evidence of the shooting, blood traces, spent shell casings, and signs that the body had been dragged. When questioned further, Demeter allegedly admitted to shooting his brother. The warrant also recorded a statement in which the teenager claimed his brother had done stuff to him in the past. Investigators did not release details about what that meant, and no supporting evidence was made public. Reports differ on whether there had been prior family disputes or disciplinary interventions. What is confirmed is that the weapon used belonged to the household and that the victim was unarmed. On August 19th, Broward Sheriff's Office announced the arrest of a 15-year-old for the homicide. His name was initially withheld due to his age, but as the case progressed, prosecutors charged him as an adult with first-degree murder with a firearm. At his first court appearance, prosecutors detailed the brutality of the killing and the deliberate effort to hide the body. The judge ordered him held without bond at a juvenile detention facility, pending transfer to adult custody. The body of Kevin Dominique was examined by the Broward medical examiner, who confirmed multiple gunshot wounds consistent with a high-velocity rifle. Investigators also recovered items from the dump site, including a latex glove and a Glock magazine found in the victim's pocket. Detectives believe those items were left during the disposal process, although their significance to the sequence of events remains unclear. Reports differ on whether the firearm recovered at the scene was the same rifle used inside the house or an additional weapon. As of the latest filings in September 2025, Demeter Fleurimond remains charged as an adult with first-degree murder. No plea or verdict has been recorded. The case continues through the Broward County Circuit Court system, with prosecutors pursuing the charge under Florida's statutes governing homicide by a minor charged as an adult. Kevin Dominique's death was one of several domestic killings in Broward County that summer, but this one drew national attention because of the suspect's age and the relationship between the brothers. Detectives described it as a tragedy that left an entire family devastated. The sheriff's statement called it a senseless act of violence inside the home, carried out by a child against his own brother. Prosecutors emphasized that the premeditation alleged in the shooting justified adult charges despite the suspect's age. Number 7. Sarah Grace Patrick. On the morning of Thursday, February 20th, 2025, 16-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick was inside her family's Carroll County home. When deputies arrived minutes later, they found 41-year-old Kristen Brock and 45-year-old James Brock lying in their bed, both dead from gunshot wounds. The 911 call that brought them there had been placed by Patrick herself. Inside the house, a 6-year-old child, the couple's youngest, was found unharmed, but had discovered the bodies before help arrived. Investigators from the Carroll County Sheriff's Office quickly secured the scene. There was no sign of forced entry. The couple's bedroom showed evidence of close-range gunfire, and the victims appeared to have been shot while asleep. Deputies collected spent shell casings and firearms from the home and began processing digital and physical evidence. What looked at first like a targeted break-in soon turned into a prolonged and methodical homicide investigation. For months, the sheriff's office and federal partners examined every aspect of the Brocks' lives. They gathered ballistic evidence, reviewed security camera footage from the surrounding area, and retrieved data from multiple electronic devices inside the home. Digital forensics would later become the backbone of the case. Investigators described the evidence trail as extensive, hundreds of gigabytes of data, including online communications, search histories, and location records. During this time, no one was publicly named as a suspect. Patrick remained in the community, attending classes and posting online tributes to her mother and stepfather. On social media, especially on TikTok, she shared videos mourning their deaths and appealing for awareness of the case. Several reports confirmed that she also contacted true crime influencers, offering to provide inside information and encouraging them to cover the story. Those interactions caught investigators' attention as part of her broader digital footprint, which they later analyzed in detail. By early July, detectives had compiled enough evidence to move forward. On July 8, 2025, Sarah Grace Patrick turned herself in to the Carroll County Jail after warrants were issued for her arrest. She was charged as an adult with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault. Sheriff's officials stated that the evidence, both physical from the scene and digital from months of analysis, directly linked her to the shootings. At her first court appearance, prosecutors argued that the severity of the charges and the strength of the evidence justified adult prosecution. During the August 19th bond hearing, investigators testified about what they called mountains of digital evidence connecting her to the crime. Family members on her father's side spoke in her defense, questioning the physical evidence and urging the court to grant bond. The judge ultimately denied it, citing risk factors and the seriousness of the case. Authorities have not released a specific motive. No public records or statements from investigators suggest robbery, abuse, or outside interference. Reports differ on whether the victims were shot during an argument or while they slept. What remains consistent across all official accounts is that both victims were killed inside their own bedroom and that no one else has been charged in connection with the case. After her arrest, Patrick's social media activity drew renewed public scrutiny. Some followers pointed to her online posts and her contact with influencers as indicators of calculated behavior, while others viewed them as grief responses from a teenager under suspicion. Law enforcement has not commented on those interpretations. The sheriff's office simply confirmed that her digital activity, along with physical evidence from the home, formed part of the investigative record presented to the district attorney's office. As of late August 2025, Sarah Grace Patrick remains in custody without bond. Her case is pending in Carroll County Superior Court. Prosecutors intend to seek full adult sentencing if she is convicted. The 6-year-old sibling is now in the care of extended family. Kristen and James Brock were remembered in Carrollton as devoted parents, active in their church, and known for their involvement in community outreach programs. Their deaths shocked the quiet county and left 2 children behind, one in mourning and one in jail awaiting trial for their murders. From what investigators have confirmed, this case reflects the growing importance of digital forensics in modern homicide investigations. A months-long review of online behavior, message records, and device data replaced what older cases might have relied on immediate physical proof. The alleged killer's life, both offline and online, became the evidence. Until the trial concludes, the motive remains unspoken, but the facts already tell a story of a family destroyed within the walls of its own home, and a community still trying to understand why. Number 8. Nikita Kasap. He was a student with perfect attendance, a quiet teenager in a suburban Wisconsin home. What no one saw was the manifesto he was writing, the ideology he was consuming, and the murders he was planning. In February 2025, Nikita Kasap crossed a line that shocked a nation and revealed how extremism, isolation, and violence can collide in the most ordinary of places. Nikita Kasap was 17 years old, living in the village of Waukesha, Wisconsin, a quiet suburb just outside Milwaukee. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. He attended Waukesha West High School. He had perfect attendance. He lived with his mother, Tatiana Kasap, 35, and his stepfather, Donald Mayer, 51, in a comfortable home on Cider Hills Drive. Tatiana and Donald appeared to be building a life together. Donald worked steadily, checking in with his manager regularly. Tatiana was a mother who had brought Nikita from Moldova years earlier, seeking a better future. Neighbors saw a typical family. But beneath that surface, something darker was taking shape. Investigators would later discover that Nikita Kasap had been living in 2 worlds. In one, he was the high school student submitting assignments and maintaining appearances. In the other, he was immersed in the darkest corners of the internet, absorbing extremist ideology and planning acts of violence. On his phone, authorities found materials linked to the Order of 9 Angles, a group the FBI describes as a satanic cult that blends Nazi ideology with apocalyptic violence. The group promotes terrorism, abuse, and the collapse of modern civilization. Kasap identified himself as a follower. He was also active in at least 5 Telegram channels, including a Russian-language neo-Nazi chat where users shared instructions for building explosives, crafting poisons, and assembling improvised firearms. He became a believer in militant accelerationism, a philosophy that seeks to speed the collapse of society through spectacular acts of violence. For Kassap, this wasn't just theory, it was a call to action. In the weeks before the murders, he told a female classmate that he was planning to kill his parents. He said he didn't have access to a gun, but that he would befriend someone who did and steal it. The classmate later told police that Kassap warned her she would regret it if she told anyone. On January 28th, 2 weeks before the murders, photos show Kassap holding a Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum revolver, his stepfather's gun, the weapon that would soon be used to kill. On the morning of February 11th, surveillance cameras captured Tatiana Kassap and Donald Mayer leaving a Waukesha grocery store. It would be the last time they were seen alive. What happened inside their home that day can only be pieced together from the crime scene and Kassap's own recorded confessions. Prosecutors say Kassap shot his mother at least 3 times, twice in the stomach and once in the neck. She was found in a hallway, covered with blankets and a towel, while his stepfather, Donald Mayer, was killed by a single gunshot to the back of the head. His body was discovered in a first-floor office, covered by a pile of clothing. The brutality was calculated, the concealment, methodical. And then, Nikita Kassap did something chilling. He stayed. For 12 days, Kassap continued to live inside the home with his parents' decomposing bodies. He submitted schoolwork electronically the day after the murders. He used his mother's and stepfather's phones to send messages to Donald's employer, pretending to be him and claiming he was sick. He kept up the illusion that everything was normal. But inside the house, a camera recorded something horrific. On a memory card later recovered by police, video showed Kassap entering the office where Donald's body lay. He was lighting candles, sitting near the corpse, recording it. At one point, he stood next to the body with his phone out, appearing to take photos while filming himself. In one chilling moment, he spoke to the camera. "So you can see him there. I can literally see the fucking rotting body." The detachment was unnerving, the cruelty undeniable. While living with the bodies, Kassap was communicating with overseas contacts. Messages in Russian and Romanian were found on his phone. He was coordinating logistics with individuals in Russia and Ukraine, discussing weapons, escape routes, and financial support. On February 8th, just 3 days before the murders, his phone showed messages about money he was receiving, evidence of pre-planned financial backing. In one telegram message, Kassap asked a contact, "So, while in Ukraine, I'll be able to live a normal life, even when it's found out I did it?" Investigators discovered a 3-page manifesto written by Kassap. In it, he called for the assassination of President Donald Trump. He wrote, "Do absolutely anything you can that will lead to the collapse of America or any country you live in. This is the only way we can save the white race." An unidentified associate texted him, "Russia will be blamed for it. This is the goal." Kassap also allegedly paid, at least in part, for a drone equipped with a dropping mechanism designed to deploy explosives, Molotov cocktails, or poison. He discussed purchasing materials for building bombs and planning coordinated attacks. He told a classmate that when they heard about 10 consecutive attacks in the news, it would be him. He believed he was part of a larger network preparing simultaneous strikes. He was not just planning a murder, he was preparing for domestic terrorism. By February 23rd, Kassap was ready to run. He gathered nearly $14,000 in cash, much of it found later stuffed inside a Bible. He took approximately 70 pieces of his mother's jewelry. He collected his parents' financial cards, driver's licenses, and identification documents. He loaded the family's small black dog, Toby, into Donald Mayer's 2018 Volkswagen Atlas, and he drove west. Flock camera data showed the stolen vehicle leaving Waukesha on February 24th. Kassap traveled through Illinois, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Colorado. Surveillance footage from Iowa 80, the world's largest truck stop in Walcott, Iowa, captured the Volkswagen Atlas with a single occupant and a small black dog. Meanwhile, back in Waukesha, concern was growing. Kassap hadn't been to school in 2 weeks. Donald Mayer's manager sent texts that went unanswered or were answered by someone impersonating him. Donald's mother in Massachusetts, Judith Mayer, hadn't heard from her son. She contacted Waukesha West High School. A school resource officer requested a wellness check. On February 28th, at 9:44 a.m., Waukesha County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the home on Cider Hills Drive. Inside, they found a scene of neglect and decay. Drawers emptied, closets ransacked, belongings scattered across the floor. Tatiana Kassap's body was in the hallway, covered with blankets and a towel. She had been dead for more than 2 weeks. Donald Mayer's body was in the office, partially hidden beneath clothing. The state of decomposition confirmed what surveillance footage already suggested. Both had been killed on February 11th. The family dog was gone, the stepfather's car was gone, and Nikita Kassap was gone. That same day, at 11:25 p.m., officers in Waukene, Kansas, a small town more than 700 miles from Waukesha, conducted a traffic stop. Behind the wheel of the stolen Volkswagen Atlas was Nikita Kassap. Inside the vehicle, authorities found the .357 Magnum revolver used in the murders. They found $14,000 in cash, including $8,000 hidden inside a Bible. They found more than $14,000 worth of jewelry. They found ammunition and spent shell casings. They found driver's licenses belonging to Donald Mayer and Tatiana Kassap. Kassap was taken into custody without incident. As Kassap was extradited back to Wisconsin, the scale of the plot became clear. The FBI obtained a search warrant for his electronic devices and found evidence of a conspiracy far beyond murder. Kassap had been in contact with multiple extremist networks. He had shared his plans with at least one Russian contact. He had researched bomb-making techniques and drone weaponization. Investigators also found messages in Russian, instructing Kassap to drag his parents' bodies to the basement. The direction was never followed, but it revealed coordination with foreign contacts who knew about the murders and were guiding him. On March 5th, Kassap appeared virtually in Otrego County, Kansas, for an extradition hearing. The magistrate judge gave Wisconsin until March 15th to bring him back. By March 12th, he was in a Waukesha County courtroom for the first time. Initially, Kassap was charged only with operating a motor vehicle without the owner's consent and theft of movable property. His defense attorney, Nicole Ostrovsky, moved to dismiss the charges based on her review of the criminal complaint. But Waukesha County District Attorney Leslie Boese made it clear that more serious charges were coming. On March 27th, those charges were filed. Kassap now faced 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, 2 counts of hiding a corpse, 2 counts of theft of movable property, 2 counts of identity theft for financial gain, and operating a motor vehicle without the owner's consent. Waukesha County Court Commissioner Christopher Bailey set bond at $1 million. On April 9th, Kassap appeared for a preliminary hearing. Waukesha County Sheriff's Detective Ross Seitz took the stand and testified publicly about the investigation for the first time. He told the court that surveillance footage showed the couple was last seen alive, leaving Waukesha grocery stores on February 11th. That was the date the medical examiner determined the 2 likely died. Detective Seitz also shared chilling details from witness interviews. A classmate testified that Kassap had talked about killing himself or harming himself, and had mentioned that he would first kill his parents because he didn't want to subject them to his own death. The judge found probable cause to believe a felony had been committed and ruled the case could proceed to trial. District Attorney Boese hinted that additional charges were still pending, likely related to electronic downloads investigators were still processing. On April 13th, a federal search warrant affidavit was unsealed in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. It laid out the FBI's findings in stark detail. Federal investigators were pursuing 3 charges against Kassap: presidential assassination, conspiracy, and use of weapons of mass destruction. The affidavit stated that Kassap killed his parents to obtain the financial means and autonomy necessary to carry out his plan to assassinate President Donald Trump and overthrow the United States government. It also revealed that others may have been involved. The FBI labeled Kassap a nihilistic violent extremist, a person driven by hatred of society at large and a desire to bring about its collapse by sowing indiscriminate chaos, destruction, and social instability. Donald Mayer was 51 years old. He was a devoted employee, a stepfather, and a son. His mother, Judith Mayer, who requested the wellness check that led to the discovery of the bodies, spoke to reporters in the days after the murders. "It was awful. The worst thing a mother could ever have happened," she said. "It's very difficult to accept that Nicky killed his mother and father. It just doesn't make any sense." Tatiana Kasap was 35 years old. She had brought Nikita from Moldova, seeking a better future for them both. She was building a life in America, a home, a family. She never saw the danger growing inside her own house. Number 9. Kelvin Thomas Jr. and Jalen Lucas. He came to Washington with a dream, a finance major with a passion for public service, ready to serve his country on Capitol Hill. What should have been a summer of promise became a tragedy that shocked the nation. A young man killed by bullets that were never meant for him. In June 2025, Eric Tarpinian Joachim's life ended on a DC street, caught in violence that revealed how gang warfare, stolen cars, and stray bullets can destroy innocent lives in an instant. Eric Michael Tarpinian Joachim was 21 years old and full of promise. Born and raised in Granby, Massachusetts, a small town of just over 6,000 people, he was a rising senior at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. He was majoring in finance with a minor in political science. His professors described him as dedicated. His classmates knew him as bright and thoughtful. His family called him kind and gentle. Eric was neurodiverse. He had overcome dyslexia and a heart condition to achieve what many would have thought impossible, a coveted congressional internship on Capitol Hill. For Eric, this wasn't just a resume builder, it was the fulfillment of a dream. In early 2025, Eric participated in a spring fellowship with the Fund for American Studies. By June, he had secured an internship in the office of Representative Ron Estes, a Republican congressman from Kansas. Eric's responsibilities included greeting visitors, answering phones, and assisting with constituent services. Eric had been in Washington for barely a month. He was building connections, learning the rhythms of Capitol Hill, and planning his future. His friend, Philip Peterson, who met Eric earlier that year, described him as a very easygoing person to be around. On the night of June 30th, Eric was walking near the Mount Vernon Square metro station in Northwest Washington. He had his whole life ahead of him, a degree to finish, a career to build, a family that loved him. And then, in less than a minute, it was all taken away. It was 10:28 p.m. when the call came in to the Metropolitan Police Department. Shots fired, multiple victims. The 1,200 block of 7th Street Northwest, near the Walter Washington Convention Center. Officers arrived to find chaos. 3 people had been shot. A 21-year-old male, Eric Tarpinian Joachim, was lying unconscious on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds. A 42-year-old woman had been shot in the back of her thigh as she walked into a bar 5 blocks away. A 16-year-old boy had been shot twice, once in the chest and once in the stomach, while riding his bicycle. Shell casings littered the street. Investigators would later count 79 rounds of ammunition on the ground. Eric was rushed to a nearby hospital. Doctors worked through the night, but the wounds were too severe. On July 1st, surrounded by the family who had traveled from Massachusetts to be with him, Eric Michael Tarpinian Joachim was pronounced dead. He had been shot 4 times. The investigation revealed a chilling truth. Eric Tarpinian Joachim was not the intended target. He was an innocent bystander. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught in a hail of gunfire meant for someone else. According to investigators, the shooting was the result of an ongoing neighborhood crew dispute, a gang conflict that had been simmering for weeks or months. On the night of June 30th, that dispute erupted into violence. Multiple suspects exited a vehicle and opened fire on a group of people. The vehicle was a black Acura RLX, a luxury sedan that had been stolen earlier that day in Maryland. License plate readers and surveillance cameras tracked the stolen car as it made its way from Maryland into Washington, D.C. The shooting was not random. It was targeted. But the targets were not Eric, the woman walking to a bar, or the teenage boy on a bicycle. The shooters were aiming at members of a rival crew. They fired more than 60 rounds from the stolen vehicle, and when the smoke cleared, 3 innocent people had been shot. The woman and the 16-year-old boy survived. Eric did not. For 2 months, investigators worked around the clock. They reviewed surveillance footage from dozens of cameras. They conducted interviews with witnesses and informants. They analyzed ballistics evidence. They traced the stolen vehicle. They worked with the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, tobacco, firearms and explosives, and the U.S. Marshals Service. And on September 5th, they made their move. On the morning of September 5th, members of the Capital Area Regional Fugitive Task Force and the U.S. Marshals Service arrested two 17-year-old boys in Washington, D.C. Their names: Kelvin Thomas Jr. and Jalen Lucas. Thomas and Lucas were both charged as adults with first-degree murder while armed. Under D.C. law, juveniles age 15 and older can be prosecuted as adults for certain violent crimes. In this case, prosecutors argued that the severity of the crime and the defendant's prior records warranted adult charges. Metropolitan Police Commander Kevin Kentish testified that Thomas and Lucas were shooting in the direction of two individuals who were riding a bike, one of whom was the 16-year-old boy who was shot and survived. After the shooting, the suspects fled the area in the stolen Acura, which was later recovered in Maryland. On September 7th, Thomas and Lucas appeared in court and were ordered held without bond. Both teens pleaded not guilty. But the investigation was not over. There was a third suspect. Authorities announced they were searching for 18-year-old Naquan Antonio Lucas. His connection to Jalen Lucas, if any, remains unclear, though the shared last name raised questions that officials have not answered. A warrant was issued for Naquan Lucas's arrest on charges of first-degree murder while armed. The FBI's Washington field office added $15,000 to the standard $25,000 reward offered by the Metropolitan Police Department. The U.S. Marshals Service contributed an additional $10,000, bringing the total reward to $50,000 for information leading to his arrest. Authorities described Naquan Lucas as armed and dangerous. They urged the public not to approach him. For weeks, the search continued. Investigators released photos, circulated bulletins, and followed leads. And then, on a day that should have been a relief for Eric's family, the case took an even darker turn. On July 4th, just 4 days after Eric Tarpinian Jakim was killed, Naquan Lucas allegedly committed another murder. Her name was Zoe Kelly. She was 17 years old. She was Naquan Lucas's girlfriend. Zoe's body was found in a storage container covered by blankets inside the closet of a home in the 1700 block of Benning Road Northeast. The home belonged to the roommate of Naquan Lucas's father. Zoe was remembered by her family as the life of the party. She was a friend who laughed, played, and cried with them, someone they could always count on. She had been accepted into the firefighter academy while finishing her senior year of high school. Now she was gone, another young life stolen by violence. On October 30th, more than 4 months after the shooting, U.S. Marshals arrested Naquan Antonio Lucas in Germantown, Maryland. He was taken into custody without incident. The next day, October 31st, Lucas was arraigned in D.C. Superior Court. He pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder while armed, one for the killing of Eric Tarpinian Jakim and one for the killing of Zoe Kelly. U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro spoke at a press conference following the arrest. This individual is alleged to have taken the lives of 2 young people with bright futures ahead of them, she said. All 3 suspects, Kelvin Thomas Jr., Jalen Lucas, and Naquan Antonio Lucas, have since appeared in court. All 3 have pleaded not guilty. The case is being prosecuted locally by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Columbia, meaning the death penalty is not on the table. If convicted, the defendants face life in prison without the possibility of parole. In November 2025, the 3 appeared together for a status hearing. Attorneys for the defense are reviewing discovery materials, including surveillance footage, witness statements, ballistics reports, and cell phone data. A trial date has not yet been set. Prosecutors are expected to present evidence that the shooting was premeditated, that the defendants acted together as part of a coordinated attack, and that their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent people and the wounding of 2 others. Eric Tarpinian Jakim's death sent shockwaves through Capitol Hill. On the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives, members held a moment of silence in his honor. Rep. Ron Estes, Eric's boss and mentor, spoke movingly about the young intern he had come to know. Eric's mother, Tamara Tarpinian Jakim, spoke to reporters in the days following the arrests. She expressed frustration that neither D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser nor Police Chief Pamela Smith had reached out to her directly. Eric's sister, Angela, added, "It's a horrible loss. and I don't know if we'll ever recover. We'll just learn to cope and move on day by day, but the pain will always be there. Zoe Kelly's family, too, is left to navigate the unbearable grief of losing someone they loved. She was a teenager with dreams of becoming a firefighter. She was someone who brought light and laughter to those around her. And now she is gone, killed allegedly by someone she trusted. Eric Tarpinian Jackham's death became a flashpoint in a broader political debate about crime in Washington, D.C. Number 10. Vincent Battaloro. Maria Niotis was 17 years old. She was born in Greece and had been a lifelong resident of Cranford, New Jersey. Those who knew her described her as radiant, a girl who could walk into a room and light it up just by being herself. Maria had dreams, big ones. She was passionate about beauty, not the superficial kind, but the beauty that comes from within. She wanted to become a cosmetologist and one day own her own business. She worked at a local cafe, saved money, and planned her future with the kind of determination that made her family proud. Maria loved deeply. She was kind to everyone. She stood up for people who were bullied. She gave generously. She dreamed boldly. She was supposed to graduate high school in June 2026. She was supposed to have a future. Isabella Salas, Bella, to those who loved her, was also 17. She was Maria's best friend. They did everything together. Bella was involved in her high school's theater groups and choirs. She volunteered at a local food pantry. She had been accepted into the firefighter academy while finishing her senior year at Cranford High School. Isabella lived in the same neighborhood as Westfield Police Chief Christopher Battaloro, who later described her as a beautiful, charismatic young lady he had watched grow up since the day he moved to Cranford. On the afternoon of September 29th, Maria and Isabella decided to go for a ride. It was a warm, ordinary day. They climbed onto an e-bike and headed down Burnside Avenue. Two best friends, two futures, two lives about to be erased. Vincent Battaloro was also 17 years old. He lived in Garwood, New Jersey, a neighboring town just 2 miles from Cranford. On paper, he was a typical teenager. He attended school. He streamed video games online. He had tens of thousands of followers on YouTube. But beneath the surface, Battaloro was someone else entirely. According to friends and family of Maria Niotis, Battaloro had been obsessed with her for months. They had gone to school together. At some point, they had a relationship. When Maria broke up with him, Battaloro could not let go. He began stalking her. For 3 months, Battaloro parked his black 2021 Jeep Compass outside Maria's house. Day after day, he would sit there, watching, waiting, refusing to leave. Maria told her mother. Her mother called the police, multiple times. Maria's mother, Fuli Niotis, later told reporters that police arrived at one point and found Battaloro parked outside their home, but instead of arresting him, they allowed him to drive away. New Jersey law does not permit restraining orders to be placed on minors. Maria was powerless to protect herself. But Battaloro's harassment did not stop at surveillance. He took it online. In April 2025, Elio Martinez, a friend and former boyfriend of Maria, confronted Battaloro in an Instagram direct message exchange. Martinez told him to leave Maria alone. Battaloro's response was chilling. "I'm not leaving her alone until she apologizes to me," he wrote. "I did it to one girl. I'll do it to another." He was threatening to fabricate and distribute fake, inappropriate images of Maria. In videos posted to his YouTube channel, Battaloro repeatedly referenced Maria. In one clip, he told a friend, "Hey, whenever Maria sees the pizza guy come, she's gonna think of Charlie Kirk for making fun of his fucking death. Stupid a clown. Just remember that." The reference was to conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, who had recently died. Maria had allegedly reposted a TikTok video making a joke about his death. Battaloro was furious. "Maybe her mother should monitor her social media activities," he said in the video. He sent prank pizzas to Maria's home. He taunted her family. He watched her online. He waited. And then, on September 23rd, 6 days before the murders, Battaloro went live on YouTube and said something that should have set off alarms. "I want vengeance," he said. Maria reported everything. The stalking, the threats, the harassment. She told the school. She told the police. She begged for help. And nothing happened. The school was notified. The police were notified, Maria's family said in a statement, and nothing happened. Fuli Niotis later told reporters that when she spoke to police about Badaloro's behavior, they kept saying the same thing. "Oh, he's a juvenile." The system failed Maria Niotis, and on September 29th, that failure became fatal. It was 5:26 p.m. when Vincent Badaloro climbed into his black Jeep Compass and drove toward Cranford. He knew where Maria would be. He had been watching her for months. Maria and Isabella were riding their e-bike down Burnside Avenue, a quiet residential street with a speed limit of 25 miles per hour. They were laughing, talking, living. And then Badaloro's Jeep came barreling down the road at 70 miles per hour. He did not swerve. He did not brake. He aimed directly at them. The impact was catastrophic. Maria and Isabella were thrown from the bike. Neighbors heard the crash and rushed outside. What they saw would haunt them forever. After striking Maria and Isabella, he abandoned the Jeep near the scene and fled on foot. Paramedics rushed the girls to a nearby hospital, but the injuries were too severe. Both Maria Niotis and Isabella Salas were pronounced dead. On September 30th, the day after the murders, Vincent Badaloro did something shocking. He went live on YouTube. For 20 minutes, he streamed a rambling monologue in which he addressed the crash without ever acknowledging his role in it. He played video games with a friend. He complained about being bullied. He claimed there had been misinformation circulating about him online. "I need to explain some things that happened over the past few days," he said. "There's been a lot of misinformation going on over the internet, but I will say this. I wish my sincerest condolences to those two girls lost in that tragic accident." He called it an accident. At one point, he said, "I'm a nice kid. I'm 17 years old with a good family by my side, and these allegations that have been ruining everything, it's a shame." The video was later taken down, but not before it spread across social media. The audacity, the narcissism, the complete lack of remorse was breathtaking. On September 30th, Badaloro was detained by Cranford police for questioning, but after several hours, he was released, pending further investigation. He walked free. For 2 days, he was back online, posting on social media, playing the victim. On October 1st, authorities finally arrested him. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. In addition to the murder charges, Badaloro was issued 15 traffic violations tied to the crash. He was 17 years old and had no legal right to drive, but that did not stop him from getting behind the wheel of a 2-ton vehicle and using it as a weapon. Isabella's family added that she did not know Badaloro. She was not part of the dispute. She was simply Maria's best friend, in the wrong place at the wrong time. On October 4th, hundreds gathered at St. Demetrios Greek Orthodox Church in Union, New Jersey, to say goodbye to Maria Niotis. The pews were packed. The message was one of love, faith, and family. Maria's mother, Fuli Niotis, stood before the mourners and spoke through her grief. She did not mention Badaloro by name. She chose instead to focus on her daughter, the beauty she brought into the world, the dreams she had, the love she gave. On October 5th, a visitation was held for Isabella Salas in Cranford. On October 7th, her funeral followed. Family and friends remembered her as a light, a girl who brought joy to everyone she met. A GoFundMe campaign set up to support both families raised more than $161,000. As the case exploded in the media, one name kept coming up: Christopher Badaloro. Christopher Badaloro is the police chief of Westfield, New Jersey, a neighboring town just minutes from Cranford. He is also a relative of Vincent Badaloro. The exact nature of their relationship has not been fully disclosed, but Chief Badaloro confirmed the connection in a lengthy Facebook statement posted on October 2nd. Chief Badaloro explained that he lives in the same Cranford neighborhood where the crash occurred, and that he responded to the scene to assist Cranford police. He condemned the actions of the accused and called for justice. The statement was an attempt to distance himself from his relative, but it also raised uncomfortable questions. Did Vincent Badaloro's family connections play a role in how police responded to Maria's complaints? Did his relative's position in law enforcement give him a sense of immunity? As of November 2025, Vincent Badaloro remains in custody. He is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Because of his age, The case is currently being handled in New Jersey's juvenile justice system, a system that does not release information publicly about cases involving minors. However, prosecutors are exploring all legal options to try Battloro as an adult. Under New Jersey law, minors aged 15 or older can be waived into adult court for serious crimes if a prosecutor files a motion and the court finds probable cause. If convicted as an adult, Battloro would face 30 years to life in prison. If convicted in juvenile court, the sentence would be significantly shorter, and his record could be sealed. The families of Maria and Isabella have made it clear they want Battloro tried as an adult. Maria's mother, Fuli, has been vocal about her desire for accountability. She believes the system failed her daughter, and she is determined to see justice served. A municipal court hearing for Battloro's 15 traffic violations was scheduled for October 29, 2025. The criminal case is ongoing. A trial date has not yet been set. For 3 months, Maria lived in fear. She knew Battloro was dangerous. She knew he was escalating. She knew he was going to hurt her. And no one stopped him. Every case in this series shows how obsession, rejection, and unchecked rage can explode into irreversible violence. The truth is, most of these tragedies could have been stopped with accountability, with taking threats seriously. If you've been following the channel and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode. Stay safe until next time.